Here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line is a man who's got a new gig to go along with his other new gig. How many new gigs can one man have? Well, Greg Olsen, one of the best analysts on TV. I've told him this the last time. I really enjoy his calls of NFL games on Fox, along with former Carolina Panther and so many other places, Ryan Khalil and Vince Vaughn. They have formed a new podcasting company called Audiorama, and here to talk about that and everything else is the aforementioned Greg Olsen on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line. How are you, Greg?
I'm doing great, Rich. How's it going, man? It's good to be on.
I'm doing fine. So how'd you get this? Did Khalil put you in touch with Vince Vaughn, Mr. Hollywood? Is that how that worked, Greg? Is that the connection?
Actually, for once, it was actually the other way around. So I got to know Vince. I got to know Vince when I lived out in Chicago. We got connected through some mutual friends.
The Bears.
During my playing time when he was still living out there, and kind of struck up a friendship and got to know him and his family. And now him and Khalil actually live back in Manhattan Beach. They're neighbors back there. So just all of us have just kept, obviously been good friends for a long time now. And the two of them met just through me and our friendship with each other. And we were having dinner actually about this time last year out in Manhattan Beach. We were just having dinner, and I was kind of pitching them on this youth sports podcast, which is now, the Youth Inc. show that we've launched. And I was kind of pitching them this idea I had about, like, this world I'm living in with youth sports and, the decisions that all these parents have to make. And here I am. I've lived this my whole life. I grew up around it with my dad being my coach. And it's hard for me to understand what's enough, what's not enough, I said, I can only imagine what this must be like for other families. Like, there has to be a show here where, like, we go out and we have these conversations and we explore all these different sides of this crazy world of youth sports. And they're like, dude, we love it, but, like, don't give that to someone else. Like, why don't we just build our own platform around it, between their contacts out there in Hollywood with the scripted stuff and the shows. And, we were able to bring in a really cool venture capital group that was behind Wondery and some of the work they did with Powerhouse Capital. So we just formed a really great group of guys that really understand this space. And You Think will be our first, kind of launch show. And we're looking to continue to add content and add really interesting storytelling and other pieces of content around it as we continue to grow the platform. So it's been a lot of work, but it's been a lot of fun.
So my bad. Khalil's in the sidecar on this one. That's what you're saying.
Khalil's in the sidecar, and I hope he's listening.
Okay. Well, we love calling Ryan Khalil out. We love doing that. We love smoking him out. We love him.
He's doing some awesome stuff right now. I mean, he's in Brooklyn right now filming a show for Apple. I mean, he's doing, like, real deal work here.
Well, I love it. I just think it's terrific. So congratulations on that. We'll talk a little bit more about it before we send you on with your Good Thursday. What did you make of the Russell Wilson Seattle trade with Denver? What do you think of that, Greg Olsen?
I don't want to say I'm surprised. I mean, I shouldn't say I was surprised that it actually ended up. I was not surprised that those rumors have been around. And usually where there's smoke, there's fire, right? I mean, it just seemed like there was that something was coming to an end, that there was a new kind of changing of the guard going on there. And no mistake that Russ wanted to be somewhere where it was an offensive-driven league and it was an offensive-driven team and a system and whatnot. It was just a matter of, would Seattle ever part ways with a franchise quarterback and someone like Russ, who's kind of such a key figure in that organization's history and has, won a Super Bowl and, is kind of one of the marquee players in the league. So, when the news broke yesterday, I got a couple of texts from some buddies and they're like, Russ is traded. I was like, what? But I think it makes sense to Denver. I think Denver was one of those spots that all along always seemed like a spot that was a quarterback away from being a contender. So there's not always a lot of those situations, but I feel like Denver was one of them. You could say Indianapolis was one of them. I'm sure for Denver, getting him out of the NFC was a big factor in sending him to Denver. So I think it doesn't surprise me. I think he can go there and win. I think that roster, I think it's going to be an offensive-driven system with Hackett coming from Green Bay. And obviously they have some weapons offensively. They got some young pieces. So I think it checks a lot of the boxes that he's looking for. And listen, with his no trade clause, if he wasn't on board, he wouldn't have accepted the trade. So it seems like this was something all parties were on board with, and that's usually how things get worked out. Right.
So where do you stand on the fact that he's entering his mid-30s and for the first time missed some games last year? His MVP season the year before fizzled out, and that Denver's not getting the Russell Wilson that we all came to know and that Seattle came to love. What are your thoughts on that, Greg?
Yeah, I just think we've seen so many quarterbacks. I mean, we still see it this day with Rodgers and Brady, and we saw Breeze play at a high level for a long time. And I just think we see quarterbacks play well into their 30s, mid to late 30s and 40s with Brady. So I just think, with the guy just being around Russ and seeing how he prepares and how he takes care of his body and the team he has around him, that you talk about a guy who is fully committed to his craft and fully committed to his off season. There's no difference with him the day before a playoff game or in February training at his place where he built a weight room and built a football field at his house in San Diego. And I mean, he's sparing no expense. He's not cutting any corners. I mean, he's going to be one of those guys that is taking care of his body at an everyday, all the day type basis, all the time type basis. And I just think he's a guy that can play. He's been vocal about it. He thinks he can play, past 40, and I think he has a lot of things that he still wants to accomplish. So I don't think I'd be concerned about his age. I don't think that's right now. He's entering the part where that's a factor. But I still think he's got a good amount of ball left in him physically and mentally. He's very strong and very passionate about what he does.
Greg Olsen here on the Rich Eisen Show. And then, there's the Wentz acquisition to Washington. I'll be honest, you're a Washington Commander fan, and you're hearing, well, they're taking a shot at Rodgers. They took a shot at Russ. They've taken shots everywhere. It's Wentz's gig now. I wouldn't be terribly excited about it. Are you?
I think there's two aspects to it. I think you mentioned it. I think Washington, and I've known Ron, and I've known a lot of those guys for a long time. Right. They understood. I mean, Heineke was a great story. He's a great kid. Gave them some really good play. He brought a lot of energy to the group. But they all understood that at some point they needed to make. They tried to bring in Fitzpatrick last year. He ended up getting banged up early, which made Taylor play. But I just think at some point they realized they needed to get better at that position and get a marquee guy in there, get some stability, and it's most likely not going to come in the draft. It's mostly going to have to be a free agent that they either trade for, either a free agent they can sign, or someone they tried to trade for Stafford. They tried to make a run at Russ, and I don't so much think that settling on Wentz was the big issue. The part that concerns me is that they pay his full salary. So I think they kind of let Indianapolis, who had pretty much given up on Indianapolis. I'd be curious about how the conversation went when a team has to dump their quarterback because they've already, in essence, made that clear that they're going in a different direction after just one short year. You thought that maybe Indy, you've seen teams in the past eat some of that salary of the big guy to try to get them off their own books and carry some of that cost. If they could have gotten Wentz at a reduced value because it was being offset by Indianapolis, I think the whole trade would be looked at a little differently. So I think right now absorbing that, was it $28 million? That's a big number for a guy that, we saw play well at times last year, but the mark was always, can he play well enough when it matters, and ended up falling short in the playoffs. So I think that's a big gamble. I think it's interesting. He's very talented. I think we've seen him when he plays well. He plays really well. He's just got to find a way to not have the down moments, right? The tough moments kind of sometimes outshine the positives. And when you're making $28 million and now you're on your third team, there's going to be a big spotlight on him. And obviously Washington feels like they can get the best out of him.
Greg Olsen here on the Rich Eisen Show. Greg, is your a content creator of note now. The best ideas sometimes are just spitballed. We had one on this show just the other day. We have a new segment or idea. We'll see. It's still in its infancy phase. We don't have any venture capital behind it yet. But it's the TB12 heat check. On a scale of 0 to 12. 0 is he's eating frozen pizzas at craft services with Jane Fonda, taking 5, right? No chance of him coming back. 12 is him definitely coming back. Where do you stand on a TB12 heat check here on the Thursday before the new league year? I like that segment. Thank you, sir.
You're gonna have sponsors lined up to sponsor that segment any day. I can sense it.
We can make a podcast out of it for Audiorama. We could do that.
Done. I would love. Let's talk offline. We'd love to make that happen. We are always looking to get great storytellers.
Okay.
Rich. We're happy to take you.
Sounds good. Okay.
We'd be honored. I'd put him at a 7.
See? That's where
everybody's in that 7.
If you say 6 is 50-50, right? I'm not a math major, but let's just call that 50-50.
Right.
I think he's a little shade on the positive. I think that's my take. I don't know what that's based on. I don't know if that's based in reality or if that's based in just all of us football fans hoping he's not done. Maybe some false optimism, but I would go with a 7.
Well, you have experience on leaving football playing behind, but also trying to extend your career as long as possible. You had injuries that obviously factored in, and Brady, from all evidence right now, doesn't appear to be hurt in any way, shape, or form. As a matter of fact, he looks just like Tom Brady. So you have that, I think, insight, and him just leaving a door open. Why does he need to do that? It's other than that he's just being honest about it, I think.
I think that's what it is. I think he's just being honest, and I think there's two ways of thinking about it. I think traditionally the way people view it is, if you're not all the way in and you've been considering retirement, then it's time to step away, right? It can only be done if you're all in, and I think there is some truth to that. But I think for a lot of guys, and I know I was this way, and again, I'm not going to speak for Tom, but for guys that have really poured a lot of their life into this, there's also the element of if there's a little itch left to play, you don't ever want regret, right? You don't want to ever feel like you walked away when you had more left. And when I think about the way my career ended, as you said, my last couple of years, I had that foot problem in 17 and 18, and then I was healthy in 19 and felt really good going into the season, and then came back for one more year in 20 and felt good and felt healthy and had no injuries from the year before and had a great offseason and whatnot. And then I ended up hurting my other foot, which was beyond frustrating. But after 2020, I was like, I'm done. You know what I mean? I got it all out of my system. I had no second thoughts. I didn't even consider it. I think for a lot of guys, people always think of it, to me, backwards. I think as long as there's that little bit of that life left, a little bit of that itch, a little bit of that motivation and passion to continue to pursue this at a high level, it's very hard for guys to just completely slam that door when they can sit there and be very honest with themselves and reflect and say, man, part of me, I can still do this. And what you don't want to happen, every player's biggest fear is that they leave the game and a couple years later they sit back and they say, what if? What if I gave it another year? What if I gave it one more shot? Did I leave? Right? And I think that, and again, I'm not saying that's what's happening with Tom. I'm just saying I could understand that mentality, which is why, as you said, he's kind of always alluded to leaving this door open. He's never really completely slammed it shut. And from that perspective, I understand the train of thought.
I also think, I don't know if there's a what if for a guy with already 7 in the case. It could be, you never know, because you have to have that greed is good type mentality, But maybe it's him just saying, Rodgers is getting that money, and it's not a money thing, but just he's back, and, everybody's like, Russ has got the trade, and he could just come back and say, it's my league, guys, don't forget.
Yeah.
That they could do that.
Absolutely. The most successful guys are usually the most highly motivated, and it's an internal motivation where they don't ever accept that anyone else is better than them, right? Tom Brady will, whether he's 24 or 44, he will never in his mind not be the best. And that's just this inner fuel that certain guys have, and they channel it, and it's your greatest strength, but at times it could be your greatest weakness because, it's hard to move on and you become obsessed and it's really all you focus on. And so I think what you're saying is real. And again, I'm speculating. I've never spoken to Tom personally about it. It's hard to know what's in somebody's mind, but someone who's played at such a high level for such a long time, he had a MVP caliber year just this past season. It's not like we're seeing a guy at the tail end of his career fall into the abyss and just be a shell of himself. He's playing at it as good as he ever had. That's a tough thing to just say, okay, I'm done, when maybe in his mind he says, I can still do this.
Yeah, look, we're not going to hold you to it. I mean, it's just an original idea that we just spitballed, and there's no venture capital behind it yet, so we won't hold you to it. But next time you come on, though, we now have a baseline of your 7 That's mine too. I'm 7 also. My guy Brockman here is 11.99. Right, you're not going all the way to 12. Not going all the way to 12 just yet, but yeah.
Got to leave a little bit, Greg. You know what I mean?
A little wiggle room.
Yeah, you got it. That's called the hedge. You're a professional.
Congrats on Audiorama. Send my best to Khalil, Vince Vaughn, and everyone else there. And Youth Inc. How can people get this? Just where all podcasts are acquired, Greg? That's where
we're all podcasters are seen and listen. You go on wherever anyone listens to their pods, go on and subscribe and listen. Our first 2 episodes dropped yesterday. We talked with a world-renowned sports psychologist, Dr. Michael Gervais, and just really dove into like the real issues that are at hand, the struggles that families and parents and kids are having, navigating this world. We talked with Jerry Rice. We got some really cool episodes coming up in the next couple of weeks with Cooper Manning and obviously his son. It's been well chronicled the experience he's having now, and Shawn Johnson, the Olympic gymnast, and just her upbringing and her life. So we have some really cool conversations on the horizon with people with some really unique insight. We are fortunate Invisalign wanted to jump on board and kind of dive into this together as our partner in this project and be along with us from the jump. So it's been a really cool project, and people can go and download and subscribe wherever they get their pods, and we hope people enjoy kind of going on this journey of kind of seeking out this information alongside us.
Love it. Love it. Let me know when you're out here in LA. I'd love to see you, Greg. Love to have you here and love to hang out.
To it.
Take care, man. Thanks again for the time. Always appreciate it. That's Greg Olsen right here. Go check out Youth Inc. Where all podcasts are acquired. And that may just be, over the next couple of weeks, never know, the new lead analyst for the NFL on Fox.
Oh yeah.
Maybe there. I don't know. You know, the Aikman stuff hasn't been announced yet, but it's there, and Buck and
many
Aikman.
rumors.
Who knows?
So many rumors.
A lot of moving parts. A lot of moving parts. A lot of venture capital behind that, too.
Oh, yes.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.